The Paycheck Protection Program is back and better than ever for contractors, sole proprietors, gig economy workers. If you drive for Uber, you drive for Lyft, you do Grubhub, Instacart, Postmates, you name it, the Paycheck Protection Program is back and you can benefit from this program in a huge way. And for some reason, this program is overly complicated for these gig workers. So I'm here to just crack the code for you and walk you through step by step what you need to know, how exactly you can apply online, what documents you need, and some general questions surrounding this. So by the end of this video, if you watch the whole thing, you should know exactly how to get this forgivable PPP loan and a massive amount of effective stimulus from it. Now, the Paycheck Protection Program has had some issues in the first time around with these smaller self-employed gig type workers, but I'm here to say this is not the case this time around. There's a huge emphasis this time around to get funding to these smaller gig type workers. So if you have any kind of contract service, you should absolutely apply for the first and second Paycheck Protection Program. And I'll make sure by the end of this video, you know how to do both. If you haven't applied for the first one yet, you'll know how to do that. If you haven't gotten the second one yet, you'll know how to do that. Also, if you know any contract workers or Uber drivers or anything like that, share this video with them because they can also benefit from this in a huge way. And then you can give yourself a pat on the back for making your friend potentially thousands of dollars. So applying for both of these rounds actually has a maximum stimulus benefit of $41,666 straight to your bank account that you do not have to pay back. It's insane. I'll explain how I got that number in just a bit, but just think of this as a $40,000 stimulus check. I mean, who cares about the $600 stimulus check? We want the $40,000 stimulus check. And it's totally free to apply. And all in, this might take you 45 minutes to understand how to do it, gather the documents, and actually apply for the thing. So, I mean, would you spend 45 minutes to make potentially $40,000? I know I would. So now that I have you convinced, let's cover the basics. First, I'm going to cover everything you need to know about the loan. Then I'm going to tell you how you can apply online. And then I'm going to tell you which documents you need to gather so you can get this application in as quickly as possible. Remember, this loan is first come, first serve. And then I'm going to do some frequently asked questions at the end of this video. So I'm going to pull this over to a form directly from the SBA so we can see the exact guidelines here. Paycheck protection, and also I'm going to tell you what's different. This is for the round two. The round one is very similar. I'll explain for both. So Paycheck Protection Program second draw loans. The Paycheck Protection Program now allows certain eligible borrowers that previously received a PPP loan to apply for a second draw PPP loan with the same general loan terms as their first draw PPP loan. Second draw PPP loans can now be used to help fund payroll costs, including benefits. Funds can also be used to pay for mortgage interest, rent, utility, worker protection costs related to COVID-19, uninsured property damage that's caused by looting or vandalism during 2020, and certain supplier costs and expenses for these operations. Now, if you're a gig type worker for Uber or something like that, likely it's just going to be your income that's paid for, not rent and utilities and things like that, because it's based on your income. So full forgiveness terms, how you get full forgiveness with one of these loans. Second draw PPP loans made to eligible borrowers qualify for full forgiveness if during the 8 to 24 week covered period following the loan disbursement, you do the following things. So first you get to decide if you want 8 or 24 weeks to fund this loan. If you're a gig worker, you're just going to do 8 weeks because it's based on 8 weeks of your earnings. So you're just going to be able to pay yourself back in 8 weeks, especially if this is your first PPP loan. And I'll explain why in just a few minutes. So you need to maintain employee and compensation levels. That's no problem for you. You're a gig worker. This money is going straight to you. Why would you not pay yourself the full amount? So count that one out. Loan proceeds are spent on payroll costs and other eligible expenses. That's no problem as well because it's based on our earnings. So you can just pay all the money to yourself if you're a contract worker. And at least 60% of the proceeds are spent on payroll costs. Well, it's all going to ourselves as contract workers. We're good to go there. So that full forgiveness is largely for small businesses who might spend money on some outside expenses that aren't applicable to forgiveness. But luckily for contractors, it's just your income. So it's going to be completely forgiven if you just pay yourself, which, I mean, doesn't get any better than that. Targeted eligibility. And this is also the same for the first round of PPP funding. You just pay yourself and you'll have it forgiven because it's based on your pay. Targeted eligibility. A borrower is generally eligible for a second draw PPP loan if the borrower first previously received the first draw PPP loan and will or has used the full amount. Now with this, obviously you can't receive a second loan if you haven't received the first one yet, but don't worry, you can still get the first one and then the second one if you haven't got the first one yet. You're just certifying. You don't have to prove this. It's just literally a checkbox. All you have to do is check a box that you either plan to or you have used your first PPP loan if you received one. You have no more than 300 employees, which isn't the case if you're a gig worker. And you can demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. So let me explain this one a little bit more in depth. So to find this out, the easiest way for most people likely, you're going to take a look at how much you made in every quarter of 2019 and every quarter of 2020. And then you're going to try and find a quarter-to-quarter comparison. Like let's say it's quarter two to quarter two of 2019, quarter two 2020. You want to find a comparison in which you earned at least 25% less in 2020. So likely you don't have quarterly reports or a profit and loss for your gig type job. So what you're gonna have to do is go into your bank statements and see exactly how much you earn and do some calculations by yourself in order to find that 25% reduction. Now there's a couple other weird exceptions here. The first one, if your gig or contract work started mid-year in 2019, this one's going to be a little bit different for you. You're going to compare just one quarter of 2019 to any quarter of 2020. So let's say you started in 2019 in October of 2019, your gig job. You're just going to take that last quarter of 2019, however much you earned, and then compare it to any quarter of 2020 and look for at least 25% reduction. Now, for someone who does like ride sharing, this is probably going to be pretty easy for you to find a 25% reduction. If you're doing delivery services, this might be harder because those have gotten more and more popular in 2020. And unfortunately, if that's the case for you, you won't be able to get the second draw loan, but you still can get the first one if you don't show that 25% reduction. But maybe you were sick or you got COVID or you took a vacation in 2020 and there's one quarter that shows less net revenue coming in 2020 versus 2019, that applies. That's more than a 25% reduction. And one other kind of weird scenario, if you started your gig or service at the beginning of 2020, what you're going to do is take your earnings for the first quarter of 2020 and then compare it to the revenue of any other quarter of 2020. So you have to have started your service before February 15th to get the second or first draw loan. So let's say you started on February 10th. You're going to take everything you earned from February 10th, and the first quarter is January, February, March. So February 10th through the end of March, and then you're going to compare that to second, third, or fourth quarter of 2020 and look for a 25% reduction in total revenue. Now let's look at how much you can make from this program and how it's calculated. So it says here, maximum loan amount and increased assistance for accommodation and food service businesses. So for most people, how you're going to calculate this is you're going to take your total earnings in either 2019 or 2020, whichever is higher. Then you're going to divide that by 12. Let me pull out a calculator here. So let's say your total earnings in 2019 was $30,000. You're going to take $30,000, divide that by 12, and then the multiple for most people is going to be 2.5. So then we multiply this by 2.5, and that is your forgivable loan amount for both rounds. So you're able to get this in the first PPP and the second. So if you earned $30,000 in net income, you can have an effective stimulus of $12,500. Now, for certain situations, you can get a 3.5 multiplier, but that's only if you're an NAICS code 72. And that is for hospitality services, food and beverage services for immediate use. It's not going to count for most gig workers. Now, let me show you how you can turn this into a potential effective stimulus of $41,666. So the maximum amount that you can get from this is based on a calculation of $100,000 a year in earnings. So that's including tips, commissions, anything additional on top of your wages or whatever you earn from your gig work up to $100,000 a year. If you earned $120,000 a year, you can only use $100,000 a year. But if you earned $100,000 a year, this is how you can make a ton of money through this program. So we say our net earnings are $100,000 in either 2019 or 2020. Then we're going to divide that by 12. This comes out to $8,333. Now our factor is 2.5, so we multiply this by 2.5, and we get $20,833. And that's for each round. So remember, we can multiply that by 2. That's how we get $41,666. And the really exciting part, let me pull myself off here. And the really exciting part with this, if you haven't received the first round yet, you can do these back to back. And I've personally verified this with Bill Briggs, the leader of the Paycheck Protection Program at the SBA. He told me that eligible contract workers and small businesses who haven't received the first round yet will be able to, starting on the 19th, apply for their first round of PPP funding, get funded up to a potential amount of that $20,000, and then they'll be able to have their covered period set to 8 weeks. They use all that funding in 8 weeks, and then right at the end of that 8 weeks, they will be able to then apply for the second round of PPP funding and get the additional $20,000, making that a total effective stimulus of $41,666, or any amount less. You can do that if you earn $50,000 a year. If you earn $20,000 a year, you can still double that up. Only some lenders know about this. The one that I have linked in my description does. I've talked to the owner. He's verified that this is possible to do through his system. So if you haven't applied for the first round yet, use my lender in the link in the description. I know some other lenders will probably allow this as well, but this is one that I verified. And one important thing to note, if you haven't yet received the first PPP loan, you don't have to show any reduction in your revenues. You can just get that PPP loan, and then the second one, you'll have to show a 25% reduction. So you may only be eligible to receive that first one, but you can still receive that first one. You can tell I'm pretty excited about this program. All right, now let's go into how exactly you can apply online for this PPP forgivable loan. Here's how I suggest to do it. Well, first off, you can apply through any SBA approved lender. If you use one the first time around and you liked them, you can use them again. However, what I've noticed is not all lenders are on top of their game here with the second round of funding. They might not have their portals open for a few weeks. So what I did is I went through and I vetted the very best lender that I could possibly find, the people who are most on top of this. And that, in my opinion, is Womply. Now, you can use a different lender, but I just know that they're on top of this, and you'll be able to get your application completely submitted on the 19th. If you're watching this before the 19th, you'll be able to have everything prepared and then submit it all on the 19th. If you're watching this after the 19th, you can do this right now. So do this right now. So let me pull over to the application here. Look at that handsome feller. Okay, so this is how you get your application started. You're going to follow my link in the description. You put in your basic information here, your company name. This is going to be your name if you're a gig worker, and then you'll put in your name again, in your email, your phone number, and then your entity type. If you're a contractor, you'll put contractor. If you're a sole proprietor, you'll do sole proprietor. Your average monthly payroll spend, that's how much you earn on average per month. It'll likely be this option. And then if you received a PPP loan in 2020, now that's basically asking, did you get the first round of PPP funding? If no, hit no, and you will be directed to apply for the first round. And then after the first round, you'll be able to get the second round. So once you fill in all this information, you can hit start my application. And another reason why I like Womply a lot is they have a phone number. You can actually call them. I don't know any other fintech that allows you to call and ask questions on your application, ask questions about your specific situation. This is huge. You can also email them at support@womply.com. But again, you can use any SBA approved lender. This is just one that I've had a lot of luck with so far. Now, once you fill out this, if you fill out this before the 19th, you're going to receive an email that prompts you to fill out some additional information, and then you'll just be stopped at a spot to pick up later where on the 19th, you'll upload your remaining documents. Now, if you're watching this after the 19th or on the 19th of January, you'll be sent an email, and then you'll be able to upload your documents straight away. And now let's go into the documents that you'll need to upload to finish your application process, and then you'll be good to go, and you'll be able to get your forgivable loan. If you can make it through this, you'll be in a great place. Let me make this full screen. First thing you need, driver's license. That's pretty self-explanatory. Second, you need a voided check for whatever bank account you typically receive your payments in. In order to get a voided check, if you don't have a check, if you have a check, just write void on one and you'll just upload a picture of that. If you don't have one, you'll have to either go to your bank and get some temporary checks and then you'll just write void on it, take a picture of it and have that ready to upload. Or I know some banks allow you to download a voided check from their online banking service, but you absolutely need a voided check. That way they know where to send the money. Next, you need proof of payroll. Now, this is one of those weird things where they call it payroll, even though it's just your income. But we're turning this into terms that are much more easy to understand. Okay, so proof of income is what we're going to call this. The easiest way to do this is if you have a 2019 or 2020 Schedule C. Now, you likely don't have a 2020 one yet, so you can use your 2019 to show what your net earnings were. Now, this is an issue that's been brought up many times to me. What if you didn't show any earnings in 2019? You unfortunately won't be able to receive anything through this program. Next, there's a stipulation if you received the EIDL loan. This is not the advance, just the loan. If you received the loan between January 31st, 2020 and April 3rd, 2020, you need to have a bank statement that shows the deposit of the loan funds into your account. Now, next, you need proof that you are working as a contractor on the date February 15th, 2020. That's what this is saying. The easiest ways to do that are going to be a bank statement or a 1099 that covers that period and shows that there was income coming in that period. They want this because you need to have been in business before the 15th of February. Now, next, if you're using 2020 to calculate the loan amount, you can provide a 1040 Schedule C draft. Now, many of you have asked me how to do this, and this is how you do it. I'll have this link in the description. Here's a 1040 Schedule C draft. You'll fill this out to the best of your ability, and you'll just submit that with your application. Let me find where you actually fill in. And here's where you actually fill in. You'll just have to submit that to your lender. Now, going back to the documents here. Now, finally, you need proof of revenue reduction. This is only for the second round of funding. For the first round of funding, you just need those first documents. You'll be good to go, and you can get that forgivable loan. For the second round, you'll need to be able to prove your revenue reduction at least after you receive the loan. You may not have to prove this up front. There is a part of the stimulus bill that says for loans under $150,000, they don't need to be proved up front. But I know most lenders will require you to provide this up front. So for this, you can choose one of the following: 2019 and 2020 tax forms. That way you can show a more than 25% reduction from year to year. Now, many of you are going to have one quarter or one period that was slower than others, or that's going to be how you prove the 25% reductions. So for most people, you could use a 2019 and 2020 quarterly income statement. With that, you're going to need to put together 8 income statements every quarter, 2019 and 2020. That's a lot of work, and I know many contractors don't have that level of organization. I mean, why would you in most cases? Now, there's a few other options. Another thing you can do is 2019 and 2020 bank statements, which I think is going to be the better option for most people. You're going to need to have every single bank statement, but then that way you'll be able to show a reduction in revenue of more than 25% in a quarter. It's a little weird because obviously a bank statement is bi-monthly and a quarter is 3 months, but it's a lot easier than having to put together entire P&Ls. And then if the business started between the 1st of January 2020 and the 15th of February 2020, then you're going to have to use the quarterly statements or bank statements for each quarter so you can compare quarter 1 to quarter 2, 3, or 4. Now, let's do some frequently asked questions about this program that I've received, and then hopefully you'll be able to go on your way, get this forgivable loan, and get some major stimulus cash in your pocket. So, first question I keep getting asked. I addressed this already, but let me address it again. What if I have no earnings? Unfortunately, you will not be able to receive this PPP loan if you have no earnings. As far as I can tell, there is no way around this. Second, what if I started my gig after February 15th, 2020? Again, you will not be able to apply for this loan. I know it might not seem fair, like what if you started in the middle of the pandemic and you're struggling now? Unfortunately, this program is only for people who have established their business or service beforehand. Number 3, can you apply for the first Paycheck protection still? Yes, you can. Use the link in my description. The lender knows how to process the first application, then you'll still be able to get the second application. It is Really exciting, but you'll want to do that sooner than later. And now number 4, what if I didn't have a reduction in earnings of more than 25%? You can still get the first round of funding, but you cannot get the second round of PPP funding. So still get the first if you haven't yet applied for that, but then you just won't be able to get the second one. It's better than nothing, but that's all we got for now. So that's going to do it for today. If you have any additional questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll do my best to address them. Help out each other if you know the answer to someone else's comment. And yeah, I'd just like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.